And welcome back to Rim Racket. This episode, it's a little delayed. It's about a day late, but we're gonna be doing some NBA conspiracy theories. This is supposed to be our Christmas episode. Everybody was busy. You're still gonna get it though, so it is what it is. First things first, as always, like and subscribe because uh, we need it. I mean, it's you're part of the system. We're part of the system. We need you to join our system and make us huge.
Help build the brand,
Honestly,
man. Help build the
this is
brand.
all we do. This or reason why we do this is for you guys, just to get good content out there. And so without you guys, we're just three idiots talking about basketball. So go
I'm an
ahead, like,
idiot.
subscribe,
I'm
shut
an
up.
idiot, but I'm not an idiot. I don't think any of you guys are idiots. But
Yeah, that's pretty rude.
We say some pretty stupid shit sometimes. Like the whole last episode, you guys are acting like idiots. You cannot tell me you weren't.
you're the one that couldn't speak.
I could speak, but you guys are taking everything dirty.
I've
You
never
couldn't
taken anything dirty.
pause.
So, like I said, we're three idiots just trying
Pause.
to do a good basketball podcast for you guys. But we need you guys' help to push it out to as many people as possible. So, like Jordan said, like Preston said, go ahead and just tap in, like, subscribe, and follow.
Yep. With that being said, um, since this is the Christmas episode or whatever, we're not gonna talk about some things that have happened in the NBA unless you guys want to later. I'm ready to just jump right into the conspiracy theories. Um, that being said, my first one is one that I find to be super fun slash interesting because it could still affect people to this day, and it
To this
is
day,
yep, it's Ryan Anderson being colorblind. This was on Reddit. This is where I got it from. I'm pretty sure the author was Box on Fire, so shout out to him. But Ryan Anderson's field goal percentage at home was 37, 3 point percentage was 33.2, and his free throw percentage was 77.3. In away games, it was 46.1 field goal. His 3 point was 46.7, and his free throw was 92.9. Fun fact: he played at or I think he played for the Rockets when this was going on. So Tracy McGrady, also a member of the Houston Rockets at one point, had complained about the depth perception in Toyota Center. That is the Rockets, right? Toyota Center.
yeah.
Okay, good. Just make sure I wasn't getting my teams mixed up. So on top of that, his depth perception.
Perception.
Shut up. At home may have had him
Okay.
believing that the goal was closer than it actually was. The red padding behind the goal and the lines may have distorted his depth perception, causing him to believe that the distance between him and the basket were significantly closer. An argument is that shooting is muscle memory, but no matter how good someone is or how down pat that they have their jump shot, I'm not going to ask them to shoot with their eyes closed. Another argument is maybe he was just performing bad at home. Well, here's his shooting splits from another predominantly red court, the Chicago Bulls. Field goal percentage 33.5, 3 point 29.1, free throw 87. So, the theory is that that man was colorblind. And I like the theory because, again, it could still be going on to this day. There could be some players that are colorblind and either don't know it or we just don't know it yet. And that's why they shoot bad because their depth is thrown off.
So I was looking into this earlier. There's this website called ClutchFans.net, and this dude named the Greyhound 33 went and did the research on Ryan Anderson's shooting percentage based off the color of the court. And coming in dead last, shooting percentage, just field goal percentage, not 3 point, but dead last was purple. So teams like Sacramento, he shot 28.6% field goal percentage. Next up is red, obviously with 35.6 percentage, and that would be in Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, Washington, Portland, and Detroit. Next up is green, so that fits like the red green colorblind, which is like 42.9% at Boston and Milwaukee. Next up is blue. He shot 46.5%, so that's OKC, Orlando. Dark blue is his number two. So he shot 53.3% in Utah, Memphis, Indiana, Charlotte, Philadelphia, and Minnesota. And then his best shooting percentage against are on for these particular colors, geez, was orange. So he shot the best at orange courts, averaging 54% from the field. That's Phoenix and New York, which is crazy because it kind of fits like that whole conspiracy that he was colorblind. Obviously, with the red green colorblind, so red and purple are similar, and then green. Those are his bottom three colors, and then his top three ones are, colors that he could see if he had that colorblind problem.
This is the first I've ever heard of it, so I
But the
never knew
difference
anything about.
between 54% shooting at orange courts versus 26% or 28% at a purple or red courts is crazy. So I think I believe it, honestly.
Yeah, that's one of the other reasons why I picked it is because it's like I feel like this one is true, even though I'm not sure if Ryan Anderson has ever came out and said that he was colorblind. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But uh, there's no way that somebody just plays that bad every time they step on one of those courts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, but I mean, the chances of that like are really slim. I would say he's colorblind, especially if the numbers add up to it, like how they do.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be crazy if he just like somehow manages to play really good in Phoenix and New York that have orange courts and then just plays super bad in Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, Washington, Portland, and Detroit, who all have predominantly red in it. It just, the stats just kind of prove that if he's not colorblind, then for some reason he just plays worse on red or uh, purple courts.
I don't know, but that's the theory.
Is
Who's
that all you
next?
got for us on the first one?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, so my first theory on this NBA iceberg is that Michael Jordan has a crazy gambling problem that goes deeper than we think. So I think it's pretty common knowledge if you're an NBA fan that knows about Michael Jordan, especially even now as an owner and just like a businessman. He likes to bet a lot. Um, and whenever I was doing my notes, it goes back pretty far. And this is source I have is from casino.org. They talk about that um, back in 1982, while Michael Jordan was in college, there is examples of him placing $5 bets uh, to fellow students for losing pool games. So in college, he was doing pool games and stuff and losing money. Now he's not particularly. He's never been in trouble or known to bet on basketball. Obviously, not that being not allowed and illegal, and so he probably kept it safe. But it doesn't stop him from, obviously, in college betting on pool games. And there's also stories of him in college betting with his teammates during practice, uh, just about random stuff, just shooting dice at card games, stuff like that. And then it rolled over into his professional career, obviously, whenever you start making more money. Um, there's a story from a staff member from the old Chicago Stadium. They used to show these cartoon races on their Jumbotron. And obviously, those are picked out with the media staff beforehand. They just pick the winners. And it's just like a crowd game to look at the Jumbotron and see who's going to win these fake races. But Michael Jordan was known to go into Chicago staff stadium members and betting who would win these Jumbotron cartoon races. And then it ended up getting a little bit deeper where he'd start rigging these Chicago Stadium Jumbotron races because he'd go to the media team and ask, hey, who's winning these cartoon races on the Jumbotron? And they'd tell him, and then he'd go make that bet with these people. And so even uh, early in his career, whenever he's starting to get more money, he would just do these weird, petty bets. Um, there's been some players that talk to how about MJ would bet whose bag is coming out of the terminal at the airport first. He put $100 to see whose bag is coming out first. There's nothing that was like kind of off limits for him to bet on. Um, and then it ended up going into other sports, football, baseball, fighting. He was known to be at some big fights in the '90s. Uh, George Foreman. Mike Tyson. He was present for some of those. And if you're Michael Jordan in Vegas, it's safe to say that you're probably betting on him. And then 1992. One second, my notes got messed up. Oh, there's an example of a shrug he did in the 1992 NBA Finals whenever he hits his sixth three-pointer in the first quarter of the game, and he shrugs like, "Oh, it's no big deal." And you can either look at it as, "Oh, he's just shrugging because he's hot and he doesn't know why," or maybe he just hit someone's crazy parlay for Jordan to hit, so many threes. But it all came crashing to a halt and came into like mindset whenever he retired from the NBA following the 1992 or 93 championship. Uh, Michael Jordan lost his father. His father was murdered in North Carolina and left on the side of the road. Uh, and the story goes that he retires from basketball because there's nothing he can do in basketball that he's reached the pinnacle. He's already had a three-peat in championships. And now he wants to go and play baseball because baseball was his dad's favorite sport and a sport he always wanted to grow up to play. And so he goes over and plays baseball for a couple of years, and then he ends up coming back. That's the story we all know. But the theory behind his suspension or him retiring was that there was one theory is that Jordan had got so far into gambling that he had gotten to some of the wrong spaces with people, and those people ended up killing his father. And he felt so guilty of that that he ended up retiring from basketball because he didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore. And it kind of weighed very hard on him that some of his gambling problems might be the reason why he lost his father. Now, that's a pretty dark theory, but it's one that's out there. Then there's another theory that suggests that his NBA or his betting ended up being focused on NBA games and he got caught. And David Stern, the commissioner at the time, was so thankful for Michael Jordan being as popular as he was and making uh, the NBA one of the top sports in the country and in the world. He didn't want to come out with a suspension against the best player and the most profitable player in the world. So he went behind closed doors and was like, Michael, instead of having to suspend you for 2 years out in the media, we'll suspend you behind closed doors and you just say you have to retire and then you go do whatever you want to do for a couple of years, and then once the suspension is up, you can come back. And that's another theory behind that. I tend to lean more into that one as opposed to just some bookie got mad and ended up killing Jordan's father. That's a dark one, a pretty sad one. But I think there is some backing with the whole Jordan was just getting in too deep with betting in sports, and then it ended up crossing over to the NBA. David Stern was like, "Hey, dude, uh, I don't want to hurt the NBA brand. I don't want to hurt the Jordan brand. Let's just do a behind the scenes suspension. You go do whatever you want for a couple of years and then come back." So that's the whole theory behind his gambling problem. But it still continues to this day. Jordan is still making crazy bets nowadays. Most recently, Julian Edelman was on a podcast, the Burt Kreischer podcast, and he was talking about back in 2014. It was the week of the Super Bowl. The Patriots were playing. He was at the dinner with his friends and family because they were playing the Super Bowl that week. And he walks into this restaurant and he sees Derek Jeter and Michael Jordan sitting there. And obviously, being an athlete, you want to go talk to these guys that are considered some of the greats of their sports. So he goes up to him. He's like, "Hey, I'm Julian Edelman. I play for the Patriots, and we're in the Super Bowl this week." And he talks to him, and then he said that Michael Jordan looked at him with this like crazy, like stoic look on his face, and was like, "I have a lot of money on your ass. You better not fucking lose it." And then Julian Edelman just took it very seriously and was like, "Oh my gosh, Michael Jordan, he's really in this shit." And that's just a recent story talking about Michael Jordan and his gambling problems. So obviously, still doing it to this day. But yeah, that's kind of all I got for the MJ and his gambling issues. What do you guys think?
Jordan does have a gambling problem. What makes you
I
think he has
beg
a
to
gambling
differ.
problem?
I do not have a gambling. I do not have a gambling problem because that money I made, god dang it, was from free money. So, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Um,
I'll let Jordan speak his opinion first.
I know that the theory is dark, but I lean the other way because I don't think in any sport, no matter how big the player is, or no, my bad. I don't think in any sport, because of how big the player is, Michael Jordan at that time was their cash cow. That's like Adam Silver going to tell LeBron right now, hey man, we can't have you playing. I don't think they would do that. So I lean the other way.
I see that. I see
I
that.
think I think it just got so bad that like I think the government and people might have been in it because sports betting was not very well accepted back then, and so I think it was just a very business move in terms of like not getting in trouble with the law for David Stern. Is how I see it. I think he was like, oh shit, they're on our backs. Michael's in the hole. It's going to look very bad for the brand if I go and suspend him for a couple of years because of this problem. But I need these guys off my back. So he just behind closed doors was like, hey, dude, go ahead, just retire. You'll still get your money. You'll still do this, and you can still have the ability to play other sports. Uh, and then whenever you're ready to come back, you know, NBA is open for you.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think it was the mafia, not just some random bookie.
Oh, you think he was in with the mob?
I mean, eventually you do enough gambling, especially in person gambling, not like Fliff or FanDuel. I think if you do
Yeah.
more in person betting, which is what they were doing, I me personally, I feel like you would eventually run into them at some point. And if you're
I mean,
Michael Jordan's dad, they're gonna find you anyways, especially if
oh
they know
yeah.
you're betting.
True.
And it's just sad that how his dad passed away. He just, shot and killed on the side of the highway, and his body just left there in the car.
Yeah.
Crazy.
R.I.P.
I'll
Uh,
piggyback off Jordan, off Jacobs, by bringing up the flu game, Michael Jordan's flu game. Um, Everybody knows the iconic picture of Jordan getting held up by Scottie Pippen. The game that he had this quote unquote flu game, he dropped 38 points in 44 minutes, including the tie breaking 3-pointer with 25 seconds left to beat the Jazz 90-88 and lead the series 3-2 over the Jazz. After the game, it was said that he almost played himself into passing out. Came out, was dehydrated, and he did all that just to win a basketball game. He couldn't breathe. Energy level was low. Mouth was dry. They started giving him Gatorade, and then they thought about an IV. The conspiracy is it was the night before the game, and there was like no restaurants open but a pizza place. Um, and he ordered a pizza to his hotel room in Utah, and it's believed that someone in that pizza place put something on the pizza or in the pizza to make Jordan sick. Um, I think that was explained in the Last Dance documentary. Um, he said, so we ordered a pizza. They come to deliver it. 5 guys come to deliver this pizza, and I'm just like, and it said that he says, and I take the pizza. I tell him, I said, I got a bad feeling about this. I said, I just got a bad feeling about this. He said everybody in the room, he was the only one that ate, nobody else. Then 2 in the morning, he got a call to my room. He went to the room. He curled up in the fetal position. They were looking at him. They were trying to find the team physician at the time, and immediately he said it's food poisoning, guaranteed, not the flu. So that's that. I've also heard of other conspiracy saying he was out gambling and was just hungover from the night before. That's another one I've heard. Me personally, I would believe the hungover gambling one because, as what Jacob said, he was a big gambling addict. Um, so what are y'all's thoughts
I
on
mean,
that?
I think if it came out that he was hungover gambling, it would like kind of put some sort of mark on his like on that game, right? But if
Right.
it's the whole someone food poisoned me, then it kind of it's like a bonus for him because someone tried to hurt him really bad and he overcomes that and plays really good. So it's just I feel like either side of the coin is just if you're trying to like build up his legacy, which is already cemented as, God tier in terms of basketball. Or I think if you want to look at it through reality, instead of what Michael Jordan says, because obviously he wants to build his brand. I believe in the the gambling one, and I've heard people talk about, oh, they're in Utah. There's not much to do in Utah. Well, going back to what I just talked about, if he was in college gambling on pool games, and then in Chicago gambling on these races of animated characters on a screen, Michael Jordan can find anywhere on earth to place a bet. And so I would not put it past him to be able to find a spot in Salt Lake City and bet on something. And I think it just fits his MO of being a guy that's a night on out, going out in the town, putting money down, and then just, you know, end up regretting it the next day because he drank too much and stayed out too late and ended up suffering because he had a game the next day and it made him very sick. So I tend to lean towards more of the he was hungover aspect of it.
Same.
What do you think, Georgino?
Um, I don't know. Flu, poison, gambling. Either way,
He
that's a
balled the fuck
story.
out.
Yeah, he went crazy. And some of the best
Yeah.
shoes ever made, right there. Flu games.
Yeah, those shoes are tough.
Um, I guess I'll just jump right into the next one.
Yeah,
Uh,
sounds good.
let's see. Which one do I want to do? I'll do another short one. No, I'll do the long one. Pause. Um, Ursan
Uh,
Ilyasova
uh,
is actually Arsan Ilyasov. This is written by Matthew. I'm sorry if I say your last name wrong. Matthew Duganzich. We're gonna roll with it. I think that's how you say it. That's how I'm gonna say it. That's what I said. That's the only time I'm gonna say it. Ursan was a 6'9" power forward, and most fans remember him as a role player who played for the Bucks for about 9 years of his career. He was good, 10-5 guy. He could stretch the floor. Some say maybe a little bit ahead of his time because again, he played. I don't know how when he retired, but he played a little further back. Anyways, back in 2003, a Turkish news channel came out with a report saying Ersan Ilyasova lied about his name, age, and nationality. His listed birthday of May 15th, 1987 was allegedly fake. Ersan was actually born in 1984. The craziest part is that Ersan Ilyasova is actually a man named Arsan Ilyasov who was born in Uzbekistan. In 2002, Arsan crossed the border into Turkey at 18 years old, but then went missing, never showing up again. All the documents about Arsan Ilyasov simply vanished. But only a month later, a person would go to the Turkish authorities and say he forgot to register his 15-year-old son. That boy turned out to be Ersan Ilyasova. There wasn't any previous documentation of him, and Ersan got officially registered without too much questions being asked. After the story got out, the Uzbekistan Basketball Association would file a complaint to FIBA saying Ersan can't play for the Turkish national team due to the fact that he is actually an Uzbek, I guess, from a different country.
Mm-hmm.
But FIBA rejected them due to the shortage of evidence to back that claim. But why did Ersan and his family even escape Uzbekistan? Here it is. That makes a lot more sense when you consider that the Islamic movement rose there in the 90s to overthrow the government. That led to a lot of political tensions and armed violence. It was only logical that Ersan and his family would escape and completely change their identities so they couldn't be traced. All the evidence and reports indicate that Ersan Ilyasova and Arsan Ilyasov are actually the same people, making the NBA player 3 years older than he's actually listed. A crazy NBA conspiracy that could very well be true, but not one that we can confirm is 100%. That's it. That's the theory. Ersan Ilyasova, as I know or don't know, he's never came out and confirmed that, but I think all the dots connect here for it to be another true hitter.
I think we should just ask him.
Uh, hey, come to the pod. Come to the pod, Arsan. I mean, Ursan, whoever you are.
I mean, he's only 36 years old, so you'd think he'd still be in the league. But if he's actually, 40 as opposed to that, then that kind of explains why he's not playing in the league because 40-year-olds don't tend to play. So, I mean, the age kind of fits if he actually is, 3 years older than what he's supposed to be
Yeah.
listed as. It would make sense why he's not playing right now professionally because if he was actually 36 and you said he averaged like, oh, I got it right here. He averaged 10 points per game for his career and 5.6 rebounds. Like, that's pretty solid. Uh, and if you can get that on any team, I think anyone would welcome that. And so I don't want to explain that if he was a little bit older than what people know.
Yep. I just think it's crazy.
Um, I think that I don't think he's lying about his age. I just think he's just out of the league.
Well, it wasn't that he was lying about. It's that he's just a different person in general.
You
He
cut
lied about
out
his
what?
identity.
You cut out.
It's
At least for
it's
me, you
not
did.
that he's just 3 years older or not. It's that he's just a totally different person. Like he's not Ursan Ilyasova. It's like Meta World Peace is still Ron
What?
Artest.
Oh,
But essentially, the theory boils down to him being a migrant from Uzbekistan over into Turkey, um, picks a new identity, new name, a new age. And so he's actually Arsan Ilyasov from Uzbekistan, who's 3 years older than Ursan Ilyasova from Turkey. I
and
think it
well,
kind of fits because the names are too close. I feel like, come on, you just lost track of this guy named Arsen Ilyasov, this migrant, and then ends up out of nowhere. There's a new guy named Ursan Ilyasova.
that could just be coincidence.
I don't know.
That could just be coincidence.
Don't know. We'll
We'll
never
never
know.
know unless he comes to the pod.
For real.
Jacoby, what you got?
Okay, this next one I got. I'm just going to keep on piggybacking off my MJ train. This one is one of my favorite ones, not because I don't think I believe in it, just because it is a fun rabbit hole to go down. And it involves my favorite player. So
Jimmy
Jimmy
Butler.
Butler. Yeah. So this theory states that Jimmy Butler, his father is Michael Jordan. So what got fans thinking of this is whenever Jimmy Butler first came in the league, he was drafted with the last pick of the first round, 2011, to the Bulls. And whenever he'd play, he didn't play a lot as a rookie. I think he only averaged like 2 points per game as a rookie. He didn't get many times. That was the year I was coming off of Derrick Rose's MVP, and so they had a really good squad. And so he's not getting a lot of playing time. But whenever he would play, very hard, and he was very competitive, and a lot of his teammates could see that, and the coaching staff could see that. And then going into year two and year three, he was progressively getting more playing time and playing really well. And it wasn't until about 2016, whenever this theory uh, got picked up, because it turned Jimmy Butler in the last half of the 2015-16 season out of the All Star break played some of the best basketball of his career. And then people were like, oh my gosh, he kind of plays like Michael Jordan, a guy that doesn't have a great 3 point shot, but is pretty consistent in the mid range, pretty good on defense. And whenever Jimmy Butler had his shorter hair, they kind of resembled each other. And so obviously those comparisons are making because they both play for the Bulls. Uh, 21 and 23, the similarities are there, but there was a few fans that decided to go and see if there's anything that kind of like backs it up a little bit. So if you know anything about Jimmy Butler's story, he has one of the coolest stories of making it to where he is now. He was born in Houston to a single mother, a father that abandoned him and his mother at birth and was never around. Whenever he turned 13 years of age, his mother said he was too much of a problem child and she kicked him out of the house. And so from age 13 through 18, he would spend time at relatives' houses And then in high school, he ended up finding a really solid friend that played basketball with him and convinced Jimmy to get on the basketball team. And was like, "Hey, my mom says you can hang out with me and stay on my couch." And so Jimmy Butler, for a couple of years, lives with this guy and stays on his couch over his friend's house. Coming out of high school, he wasn't really highly recruited, and so he goes and plays some junior college basketball at a college in Tomball, Texas, kind of like our area's Three Rivers kind of size school. But he played really good that season, good enough, in fact, to get an offer for a scholarship at Marquette University, a school that's had NBA talent come out of it for quite a while. The most recent and best one probably is Dwayne Wade. And so they went and got Jimmy Butler, and he ended up playing really solid for them for a couple of years. Played with some good teammates like Jay Crowder and whatnot, and ended up solidifying himself as a first round pick in the NBA. Where this theory kind of meets up with the Michael Jordan thing is that the same year that the theory came through that Michael Jordan is Jimmy Butler's son, an anonymous source said that Michael Jordan, during his playing career, early on in it, had an illegitimate son, and he had paid the mother to keep the information hidden. Which sounds like it's a Michael Jordan thing to do, to be married and have children, and then on the road, uh, you get drunk, you hook up with a woman, she ends up pregnant. You're the most brandable person on the face of the planet. It won't look too good on you to have a child with a random hookup in Houston, Texas. And so you pay this mother off, give her some money. And so whenever that mom has the kid, you just say, "Yeah, your dad left you at childbirth." And so those started to, you know, form into one conspiracy that, hey, maybe Jordan was just having an away game in Houston, and Houston's, a party city. They got clubs, they got bars, they got gambling going on. It's Texas, it's fun. Maybe one night he just had a lot to drink, hooked up with this lady. Uh, she found out she was pregnant. She contacted him. He paid her off. Jimmy Butler was born. She says, "Your dad left you. He left the family, ditched us all." Um, and so it was all speculation. And so one day I decided to go and see, well, did Michael Jordan have a game in Houston around the time that Jimmy Butler's mom would have been, uh, or he might have been, uh, you know, made, I guess is the best way of putting it. And so I went and did the research on it. And typically pregnancies last about 9 months. But what's cool is that about 7.5 to close to 8 months before Jimmy Butler was born, Michael Jordan did in fact have an away game in the city of Houston against the Rockets. And I know typically pregnancies last 9 months, but the fact that 7.5 to 8 months is still long enough. It's not full term, but it is long enough to carry a child through. Uh, like for example, I knew I was born at 7.5 months. I was a month and a half premature whenever I was born myself, and so it's definitely possible for. Oh my gosh.
Bro, what was that?
My bad. I was.
Jordan not paying attention, watching
That's
TikToks is
false. He was
outrageous.
talking about when Jimmy Butler was conceived. He was checking
Yeah.
the Houston Rockets to see when they
But what,
played.
but
Idiot.
what were you
So
doing?
I was trying to get out of apps on my phone, to save some battery, and then, accidentally clicked on one of them instead of swiping.
okay, so back to it. It kind of adds up. Michael Jordan was in town around the time that Jimmy Butler might have been conceived. Michael Jordan is kind of a sleazy figure whenever it comes to his doings behind the scene. Whether you're a fan of him on the court or not, you have to admit that like he's done some shady behavior off the court, and you can't really put it past him to have a son with a random woman. I think it's a cool theory. Uh, I think it'd be really cool if it was true, obviously, because the other two sons that Michael Jordan had, one of them wasn't really big into basketball, wasn't really great at it, and then one of them got kicked out of college because he refused to wear Adidas shoes. He wanted to wear his dad's shoes, obviously, and they were like, "We're in Adidas school. It's the NCAA rules that you have to wear the shoes and the gear that the school has signed with." And he said, well, then kick me off the team. But it'd be pretty cool if he just had an illegitimate son with a random hookup in Houston, and that ends up being, Michael Jordan. And if you have the time and want to look it up, they do have an eerie resemblance. Whenever Jimmy Butler was bald and had no hair, uh, they do have a very similar uh, look to them. And also, like I had mentioned earlier, their games are pretty similar. Obviously, Michael Jordan doing it at a higher rate, but they're both mid-range players, about 6'6" to 6'7" in height. Uh, both not great at threes, but you can knock them down whenever they're open. Both super athletic and both very, very competitive. That's the thing about Jimmy Butler is he is like ultra competitive. He's known to be a bad locker room guy, but I feel like if Jimmy Butler played in the '90s, it would just be considered normalcy for teams. But I like the theory. What do you guys think about it?
Think it could have happened.
It could have. It could have. It could also be. Well, also it couldn't. But he could be related to Wilt Chamberlain, who slept with 20,000 women in his lifetime.
Well, this is a good segue.
No, I don't think. I don't think Wilt Chamberlain was on a Segway. He too damn big.
Oh my gosh!
Anyway,
shut up.
anyway, Will. I mean, I'm not really gonna get into a whole lot of facts or conspiracies about it. It's just been said that Will Chamberlain has slept with 20,000 women. 20,000 women in a lifetime is outrageous. Wilt. I don't know why I'm calling him Will. Wilt. I even have Will in my notes. What the hell I got going on? It just says Will slept with. Shout out to Will if you slept with 20,000 women, but
Not for real. Good shit, Will.
shout out Will from Lawn and Garden. Anyway, there's a conspiracy that Otto Porter is the grandson of Wilt Chamberlain. Now, obviously, I don't have pictures, so I can't pull it up. But if you look up Wilt Chamberlain and Otto Porter, put pictures of them side by side, it resembles really, really well. How do y'all feel about that? I mean,
I mean, if he actually had
1 in
sex with
20,000.
20,000, yeah, then there's a chance that his seed has been planted in a woman, unless he's just shooting blanks
Dude,
20,000 times.
Me and you could be Will Chamberlain's grandsons.
I think no, I don't
No,
think
20,000 women. You never know.
me and you. I'm about 5'11". You were about
Hey,
5'8",
not everybody gets
and
blessed, my man.
and we're both at Wally World.
That's all I gotta do
Okay.
today.
So
I hope
this reminds me of, you guys know who Genghis Khan is?
Yeah.
Okay, Genghis Khan, if you don't know, is like uh, uh, a
Serial
crazy
killer.
ruler from serial killer, rapist, whatever you want to call him. A guy that expanded a lot of China's empire like long ago. And as of 2023, about 16 million people still have his genes in their body because he had sex with that many women and he would rape and pillage uh, his whole life. And so there's estimates that he had sex with more than 20,000 women in his lifetime. And this was, you know, uh, hundreds of years ago. And there's still people that have his DNA present in them, which is insane. And so Wilt Chamberlain had sex with that many people, 20,000. Obviously, it's been uh, less than 60, 70 years than he's been in since he was playing. I think it's safe to say that if he did, then there'd be a lot of people with his DNA and his
I,
uh
I just looked it up. It said, if that's true, he's had 42. It said 42 and a half sons that have played in the NBA.
It's impossible
that's
to get
that's crazy.
the direct number.
So this claim was from whenever he did like a night on like a late night TV.
I think it was Howard Stern.
Yeah, Howard Stern or Conan or something like that. He was just talking, and they're
I
like,
don't think Conan
he
was around
he
at
was from
that time.
Conan's been doing this shit since the '90s, dude.
Conan's old.
When did Wilt die?
In the '90s, I think like '94 or '95, something like that. But there was this book that released that shows Wilt
99. He
Chamberlain's
died in
house.
99.
No shit. But it shows his house, and he has this room, and it's a circular room, and the floor is all just one big bed, like a purple bed, and it's just the walls are just mirrors. And whenever he was giving this tour of his house, Will Chamberlain was like, "Oh, this is my sex room." And so if you broke it down for someone that rich and famous, it says they give him a 40-year time frame to sleep with 20,000 women. Who's to know if he wasn't having sex whenever he was, younger than this? But they just decided to give him 40 years. And they divided that into about 500 women per year, which averages out to at least 1.4 women a day. So at least one different woman a day, maybe a threesome or group sex. He was known for having different women in his sex rooms and his sex parties. He was known for having these crazy ass sex parties where there's just like 100 women and a few guys show up to his house and they all just get super drunk. It's Wilt in the '70s, and the '70s are just known as uh, the time to like free sex and body positivity. And so this guy's living in Los Angeles during this time frame, and he has this crazy sex room in his house, and he can afford all the alcohol and pills that you could like as a woman. I don't think it's too far fetched. So if he planted this seed that many times, there's got to be some people that are related to him.
It's like
I don't know.
Elvis. You know how many people? You know how many times I've heard folks are related to Elvis?
Well, this is the cool fact. I actually am related to this.
Here we go.
Okay, so but I
Here we
can back
go
this up.
again.
I can back this up because my grandma is actually Wilt
What?
Chamberlain. Wilt, not Wilt. She's
This
actually
boy's related to
almost
both.
What?
the
Hey
my bad.
yo!
My grandma, who
Your
is
Shout out!
grandma's
Shout out!
Wilt Chamberlain.
my
Shout out,
grandma
Grandma
is
Wilt. Shout out,
no,
Grandma Wilt.
no,
So
but
Wilt had
my
seeds planted in her. That's what
uh,
I'm hearing.
my grandma is fourth cousins with Elvis Presley, and she told me the story about. So she's from like northern Arizona, and his family is from like north uh, western Mississippi, which on a map is pretty close. They're just like there's only like a state between them. But she said that whenever she was young, there was a family reunion, and she went to Mississippi, uh, and she saw him. She said it was the one time she ever met him, and it was like before he ever got super big. It was whenever he was just now getting like radio play and stuff like that. So super cool. But she's like a fourth cousin, which is a very distant fourth cousins. Are hardly ever mentioned as like real family. But that would make him my what is that, sixth cousin? So I am directly related to Elvis Presley through my grandma's Presley sides of her genes. But that means if I can be related to fucking Elvis Presley and I'm just a dude from Dexter, Missouri, then there's someone
Yeah.
that's definitely related to fucking Wilt Chamberlain
You got
from
your name,
anywhere.
your town, your state.
Y'all want my address and my social security number?
Golly. Yeah, I don't know if I can get a segue, but speaking of 20,000 women, he had to have had some sort of intervention in San Antonio, where the Spurs turned off the AC in the game one of 2014
What?
NBA Finals. Work with me. This is the
This is what
theory.
you call a reach.
Hey,
Where's the segue?
actually,
I thought you
maybe.
about Victor Wembanyama.
No,
That's
I don't
what I
know.
was gonna say.
Apparently, the women in San Antonio are awful. Shout out Chuck.
Apparently they're huge.
Hey, maybe I don't know. Maybe he's into that.
Maybe need to go to Dallas.
I don't know. Anyways,
Shout out Zion.
here's the theory. Throughout the game, the AC wasn't working. Temperatures exceeded over 90 degrees Fahrenheit at times. It was so bad that players were covering themselves with ice packs while they were sitting on the bench. The heat got to one man in particular, no pun intended, LeBron James. He ended up leaving the
Hey.
game due to cramping. When he left the Spurs, went on a huge run. Spurs won that game 110-95. The theory is that it was an inside job because
You
well-
got to cheat against the GOAT. That's what you got to do. You got to beat them. You got to cheat against them, and that's what they did. They cheated LeBron out of that win.
You're delusional, dude.
That's not delusional.
this is not a theory. LeBron is glazing. I mean, no, President is glazing LeBron. I almost said LeBron was glazing you.
Preston
Anywho,
wishes.
He said what?
Preston wishes.
Shut the fuck up.
anyways, they believe it's an inside job because, I mean, you know, heat makes you cramp, right? And but what team out of any team in the whole NBA organization would be used to playing in the heat? The team from fucking San
The Heat.
Antonio.
Oh, I was gonna say the Heat.
No.
They're in Florida.
Yeah, but they're by beaches. San Antonio's like middle of the fucking
San Antonio is like that
middle
dry
of Texas.
heat, make you want
All
to
they all they have is like a small
cry.
river that goes through downtown. Everything else is just dry ass heat.
Well, you talk about the Spurs beating the Heat because of the AC. I talk about the Heat beating the Spurs thanks to Ray Allen, quote unquote, saving LeBron James' legacy. And here's how that happens.
Hold on, I
Uh,
wasn't done.
Wait, hold up.
oh, whoa,
You're
whoa,
gonna skip.
whoa,
You're
Hold
gonna
on.
whoa,
skip me,
whoa,
dude.
Well,
Not
first
sorry,
of all,
Preston.
I got to give my condolences. That's probably the wrong word. Shout out to Hezi Pull Out Jumbo for the article. I'm giving my
what?
shout outs.
As he pull
What?
out Jumbo.
Hey, I
That's
can't
what,
can't be
What
can't be
was
doing
Jumbo
the.
they got? What
that's
was
what they
That's
call
his
me on the
Jumbo?
name,
court.
Hezi Pull Out
That's,
Jumbo. Shout out that guy
that's,
on Reddit.
that's what they call me on the
What if
court.
it's not a what if it's not a guy?
I it was just an acronym.
Well, they are super cool. That's a dope name.
Okay, what's going on? We already know you're talking about Ray Allen, so you might as well get it over with, and then Jacob
Nice
can
try,
just do
Preston. It's
numbers
my
again.
turn.
All right, never mind.
No, I'm being petty. Preston tried to overtake my
What are
spot.
you
You guys
talking
are gonna
about?
It's
have to
my
wait for the
turn.
Jesus Shuttlesworth story.
He tried to do some snake shit and do a cool segue, but not if I have anything to say about it.
You guys are just ruining what I had planned,
You
man.
guys,
It was a cool segue. It would have fit right in. You guys are
Well,
just hating on it.
he just talked about
guys.
LeBron James, so I
Oh
figured
yeah,
I
yeah,
might as
yeah.
well talk about LeBron
I
James
figure
as
we keep
well.
talking about LeBron James.
He
Because
is.
who doesn't
Okay,
want to
so
talk
let's
about
do it.
LeBron James?
So there's this theory that LeBron James, nicknamed the kid from Akron, is what he writes on his shoes or whatever, uh, who comes from
Not just
It's like
a
not
his
just the
very
fourth.
shoes, but
impoverished household in a very impoverished part of Akron, ends up being a basketball god and has the body and archetype to be able to do pretty much everything he wants on a basketball court.
Now who's
And
glazing
so
LeBron?
yeah,
it's not
it should
glazing.
be.
I feel like anyone that
You just
watches
said you loved his
basketball.
body.
No, I did not
I would
say
have never have said
that.
that. I would have never have said that.
I did not say
Ever.
that.
Carry on.
Okay, so the theory is
All right,
that
Kendrick.
it's kind of crazy that LeBron out of nowhere becomes this, physical specimen coming from what he came from. And so the theory states that LeBron, his whole career, dating all the way back to even in high school basketball, took performing enhancing drugs, in particular HGH. So if you guys don't know what HGH is, it's the human growth hormone that comes from the pituitary gland, right in the back of the brain and on your upper neck. For example, you guys know who Andre the Giant is?
Yep.
Okay, so he had this condition where a part of his muscle was pushing up on his pituitary gland, causing his body to release excess amounts of HGH, which meant he never stopped growing even until his death. I believe. I don't know when he was when he died, but he never stopped growing. He grew his whole life. Typically, the male body stops growing at about ages 20 to 25 is whenever you stop growing in height and stuff like that. But Andre the Giant, he had this thing called, I don't know the name, don't get me wrong, but he had this thing that pushed up against the pituitary gland and released a lot of HGH, uh, then making him super tall, even though his genetics did not have anyone super tall in his family tree, and made him a literal giant. So HGH has been known as a PED, performance enhancing drug, because obviously if you take it and it makes you bigger, you get some sort of uh, advantage over other people. And so the theory states that LeBron was naturally talented in high school, um, but they didn't know about his body size because they weren't sure how he'd transfer over into a game against, a bigger man in the NBA. And so the one theory I saw on Reddit, not sure like if there's any fact behind this, but I liked it, so I went with it. Was that he got in with touch with a trainer from St. Mary St. Vincent High School, which is a private school, where he ended up getting in contact with HGH and just taking shots of that. And over the course of a few years, he grew very rapidly, uh, as well as having more uh, in tone muscle development. It looks very extreme for someone in high school to have that body tone. And so they believe that while he was younger, he took HGH to develop into the body type he was to make the league because he had the raw natural talent, but he just didn't have the size to really back it up. Um, and then there's also a theory that states that he still does it, and he has been doing it this whole time. And even an ESPN insider uh, earlier this year in March
Hater.
accused LeBron of still doing it.
Hater.
Let me find it really quick.
Hater.
In this video, he says, "Me and LeBron take the same thing." He says, "We have the same guy." He says, "I take this." I can't pronounce that word. I'll just say supplement. I take the supplement. He takes the supplement, and we have very similar outcomes, though he tends to be a lot taller. Okay, they worded that very weird. Uh, but it's still a thing that's getting brought up today. Whether there's any real backing behind it, there's not a lot of evidence. Uh, but there is uh, a lot of cool what ifs and stuff like that. Because if LeBron just comes from a similar background as Andre the Giant, who doesn't have a lot of height or size in their family tree, and then just ends up being this perfectly made, basketball archetype. Uh, if you want to believe into that, you can, and just say, "Oh, he just took HGH, and that's why uh, he's that size." And that's why all people tended to believe that whenever he was younger, he had such bad hair problems because the an excess of HGH and just hormones in the body can throw off and just take your body's uh, attention away from the simple stuff such as hair growth. And so they believed that while he was super young, he was losing hair because he was taking steroids. But once he stopped taking steroids, whenever he developed into the player he was going to become, uh, he's had a resurgence in his hairline, is what this article said right here. And if you look at it, there was points in his career between 2007 and 2014 whenever his hairline was super terrible, but that was also the time period when he was in the finals a lot and he was playing very competitive basketball. And obviously, if you are doping and taking HGH, you want to be as big as possible during that time frame. But post 2015, you can see a resurgence in more solid hair for LeBron. So that's just a theory. I don't think I believe it. I just think he might have naturally be just a really good player. But it is a cool theory to look into if you ever get interested. What do you guys think?
I think you're hating.
I don't really have anything to say. I think uh, LeBron's just gifted.
You don't think he took HGH?
I don't know. I don't think if you took HGH for this long, you'd still be doing what he does.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I mean, and it obviously caused Andre the Giant to die at a younger age than the normal lifespan of men in America. And so I think if LeBron was still taking HGH, he would not be in the health he is today at all.
Yeah.
But then, whenever Bronny went into cardiac arrest, uh, this person on Quora said that people that have taken HGH and then have procreated uh, tends to lead to some heart problems and just congenital issues in their offspring. And so some people have kind of backpacked on that. Some conspiracy theorists really read into that, like, oh, Bronny's heart problem comes from his dad taking performance enhancing drugs whenever he was younger. So there's plenty of stuff to look into, but as for me, I don't think I really believe it.
Hater.
Who's the hater?
The man ain't take nothing, bro. What the man
It's
did
just
take, what he did take was a championship from the Spurs when Ray Allen helped them. So
Saved him.
basically, yeah, he saved him. Basically, Game 6, it was 2013. Yeah, 2013.
24,
Game 6,
13, yeah, 13.
2013. LeBron missed a three-pointer with 7.9 seconds. Chris Bosh grabs the rebound, kicks the ball out to Ray Allen, who's in the corner, and at this time, the greatest shooter to ever live, and he makes the three. Right? Game goes in overtime. Heat win 103-100 with Allen hitting 2 free throws with 1.9 seconds left to win the game. Go on to Game 7, and LeBron wins his second championship. Now, did Ray Allen save LeBron's legacy with that shot?
No.
Me personally, no. Only because Ray Allen did what Ray Allen was supposed to do. Ray Allen did what he got put on Miami to do, and that's to hit shots. And what did he do in the most clutch moment of his career? He hit the biggest shot in that game, which helped them go to OT, win the game, go to Game 7, win a championship, and the rest is history. I don't really consider it a conspiracy. Now that I really think about it, I think it's
Yeah, I
more
was
of
gonna
like
ask, where's the conspiracy at?
I mean, I
Or just
guess
like a
He
basic
took
theory.
performance enhancing drugs, which helped him dial in on the rim.
those performance enhancing drugs, he'd have dunked from half court. That's what he would have done, but he didn't. Because that never happened.
Right.
Never happened.
I don't think he saved LeBron's legacy. Like think of it like this: if LeBron today had lost that finals, but everything else went the same way, and he had 3 rings today, but he's still the all-time leading scorer. He's still top 10 in almost every single stat ever. I think today people would still give him the same, hold him to the same rank, even if he had 3 rings as opposed to 4. Uh, Maybe that's just me thinking, but I feel like if everything went the same way and he lost that finals, I feel like it would just not have affected his legacy looking back on it. Maybe in that moment, oh, he definitely would have heard everything from it. How do you go and form the best team ever? And you've lost 2 finals out of 3 years. Yeah, then it would have killed it. But if his career would have went off the same way it has so far, I don't feel like it would have. I don't think that shot saved his career. But what it did is put a negative mark on Tim Duncan's career. I'm only saying that is because Tim Duncan, if that shot would have missed and the Spurs would have won, Tim Duncan would have been in a top 3 to top 5 argument as the best player of all time. If he would have missed that, if Ray Allen would have missed that shot, Tim Duncan would also be 6-0 in the finals, just like Michael Jordan, 6-0. He also would have been uh, a 2-time MVP, as well as his other accolades for the Spurs. So I feel like what that shot did was more of a knock towards the Spurs as opposed to saving LeBron. But that's just how I view it. He just with that one shot ended for the rest of eternity. Tim Duncan being talked about as like a top 3 player ever to play.
Facts. Facts.
I don't have a segue. Thon Maker's real age. Next up. I'm going to give my shout out first. Shout out Plum Lord for the Reddit article.
Plum
Right.
board.
So here it is. On draft night, a Twitter user posted a picture of a yearbook that showed that Thon Maker was potentially far older than 19 years old. Some people believed it, some people didn't because all yearbooks are different. Some people believe that the rumor started to have Thon's draft stock fall. Somebody that went to school with Thon posted more pictures that confirmed Thon graduated in 2010. Here is the timeline. Let me pull it up. It's on my phone. It's it's rather large, boss. Thon Maker is enrolled in Arranmore Catholic College, a high school in Perth. He was part of the 2010 graduating class. 2010 2011. During this time, he was discovered by Edmund Smith, an extremely shady talent scout who worked mainly with Sudanese kids and had a reputation for being controlling. He saw Thon's size, athleticism, and potential, but also knew it would never work with him being 18 already and still so raw and skinny. Pause. 2011. In early 2011, Thon Maker resurfaced as a 14-year-old prodigy in Sydney, where he joined the local club St. George Saints, an under 16 Division II squad. He didn't attend school at this time and just played basketball, away from anyone who had previously known him, and was a way to build credibility around his age. I suspect his age was somehow changed in the transition from Perth to Sydney. Late 2011 to 2012, he had gone to camps in the U.S. by this time, and the highlight reels of the amazing quote unquote eighth grader had started to emerge. 2012 to 2015, Thon Maker began eighth grade in the 2011-2012 season. Afterwards, he was bounced around various schools, at least three in the U.S. and a couple as well in Canada. In 2016, Edmund Smith's plan had succeeded, and this was the first of his projects to get him a cut of the NBA salary. After hearing John Hammond's responses on the radio, I suspect he knew or suspected Thon was older, he just didn't care. He connected personally with Thon and was willing to invest in the strong intangibles, and it was an age range he could work with. Only time will tell if he made the right move. Obviously, being a raw 21 to 23-year-old is completely different from being a raw 19-year-old. Pause. That's it. So, essentially, Thon Maker could have been 4 years older than what he was drafted at. Because
I remember whenever this was happening
Go
in
ahead.
real time.
That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. He got drafted, and like the next day, it was everywhere that he was like actually taller, or not taller. What am I talking about? Actually older than what he was listed at.
Yeah. But apparently, this happens all the time. Ursan Ilyasova, Manute Bol, who we were going to talk about, but some people found some more interesting topics for them.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa!
Are you doing
That's
Manute?
funny because this segues perfectly into my next topic about another NBA player who has a very shady past in terms of his age. That being Manute Bol. If you look at him, Manute Bol and Thon Maker look very similar, very scary dudes. Just very like daunting figures, like super tall and lanky.
Slenderman.
Yeah,
Slenderman.
exactly. They have a very similar build, but they also have kind of a similar story. As uh, uh, Thon's is a little bit different because his age uh, mishaps came pretty soon after he was drafted. Like literally the next day, there was reports talking about his age is different, and uh, so they had to figure that stuff out. But this comes from long after Manute Bol ever even played, and then the theory got bigger after he died in 2010. So if you don't know, Manute Bol is tied as being the tallest player in NBA history, listed at 7'7". The theory states that while he was playing basketball, he may have been 50 years old. Uh, if you look at where he's listed on Wikipedia, whenever he passed away, I think it lists him as 47 at the time of his passing, which seems pretty young, does it not? Like I feel like uh, in your 40s is pretty young compared to I think the lifespan. Where do you go? I think the lifespan of an average American man living in this country uh, is like in the 70s.
He
So
was
47
also
is pretty young.
76, though. I mean, 76.
Yeah,
7'6". So
yeah,
those
and
tall people have
that's a little
problems.
bit different. Yeah, they tend to have problems. But so this story starts whenever Manute Bol came over to the United States from Sudan in the mid 1980s. Uh, the theory states, Jesus, that while he was playing college basketball, he was listed at 23 years old, but he may have been in his 40s at the time. So, like I said, he died 2010. That he was 47 years old. But there's a coach talking uh, from Cleveland State. His name is Kevin Mackey, and he was talking he's doing an interview saying that he might have been in his 40s or 50s while playing in the NBA. Uh, According to Mackey, he made up a birthday for Bull when he recruited him to Cleveland State in 1984, because whenever he asked Manute Bull how old he was and when his birthday was, he said he did not know, and so he said he gave him a birthday because they didn't know how old he was. Manute Bull come from Sudan and come from a tribe. He didn't come from a city where they kept records. He came from an actual tribe. And so whenever he was recruited to play basketball, they asked him, how old are you? And he said, I don't know, because they really don't have a lot of record keeping over there in terms of dates and stuff like that. So Mackey said he had no idea of the age of this kid who came over with him. Didn't know how old he was. No one knew how old he was. So he said he wanted to make sure that he was young enough to play basketball. So he lists him at 23 years old while he's in college. The quote says, I wanted to make sure he was young enough because he didn't have an age. I think he was in his 40s. I really do. But there's no way of ever really knowing. Every athletic door is open at 19. Every athletic door is closed when you're 35. He was probably 40 to 50 years old when playing in the NBA. So another cool thing about this is that in Sudan, about every decade or so, they do this thing where they put a mark in the back of your head, signifying you've been around for about 10 decades. And it was noticed by NBA players that he had these marks on the back of his head. He had 4 marks, which would signify being at least 40 years old. And then he played, one second. Where'd he go? Oh, he played for about 6 years in the NBA, about 12 years professionally total. But that, while in the NBA, he has 4 marks. That's over 40 years, as well as playing a few years in the NBA. So the theory states that he just might have been in his 50s while playing, because he comes from a very, what am I trying to think? A tribe that does not take records of birthdays, of any documentation at all. You're born and you live. They don't really care about what time you were born, what day you were born, where you were born, uh, stuff like that. And so whenever he came to the United States to play basketball for a college, they gave him a made up date, and said, this is where you're rocking. And so if he was in his 50s, in the 90s, whenever he passed away, it is safe to say he was probably in his 60s, mid 60s, late 60s whenever he passed, which would be a little bit more believable in terms of his death age, because 47 seems pretty young, even for uh, people that tend to be 7 foot or taller. I think what I saw earlier is that their median age is still in their 60s, so 47 was kind of an outlier. I think I believe this theory. I think that if you come from a place that doesn't take records very well, this player is so good and so tall and kind of like this daunting figure on the basketball court, and you want him so bad, you give him a fake age, and he might be, you know, 10, 20 years older than you thought he was. Uh, I believe Manute Bol was probably in his 40s and 50s instead of being in his like late 20s to early 30s whenever he was playing basketball. What do you guys think?
He's always looked old to me, but
I
I
believe
wouldn't
it.
say he looked. I wouldn't say he looked old, like that old. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, if you go look at his pictures whenever he was playing, uh, obviously people coming from Africa, they tend to have a little bit more defined features, just because from being out in the sun so long, they have like more pronounced like wrinkle lines. They have tend to be like puffier cheeks because they have to block the sun from their eyes. And you look at him while he was playing, he has these same things, but he also has uh, more like aging things, such as like widow's crow around the eyes, uh, some smile lines that just indicates being a little bit older. But you might just have lived a different life and then have these different marks on your face, whatever. But they do tend to be signs of older age. I think it's a pretty cool theory, and I feel like I tend to lead towards it that no one knows how old he was because literally the guy who brought him to America made up his birthday.
You know who else is old? Chris Paul. And back in 2011, Chris Paul got vetoed a trade that would have landed him in LA from New Orleans. So it was proposed that Chris Paul would have went to the Lakers, Pau Gasol would have went to the Rockets, and Lamar Odom, Luis Scola, Kevin Martin, Goran Dragic, and a 2012 first round pick would have went to New Orleans. I don't know why I'm wanting to say Houston so bad, but anyway, the commissioner at the time, David Stern, who was overseeing the Hornets due to their ownership situation, decided to veto the trade, and he cited it for quote unquote basketball reasons for his decision, suggesting that the trade didn't make sense from a basketball perspective for all the teams involved. What do y'all think of that?
Basketball reasons is the most vague answer ever. Just the pettiest way of saying I don't like it. The same way like a little kid, whenever you ask them why they
Which
do something, they just because they're like because, you know. I
I
think it's a
mean,
very petty reason.
I've always heard of the trade. I never knew what was like to offer. You know what I mean? Like I never knew who was gonna get what. I just knew Chris Paul was gonna go to the Lakers. Looking at it and seeing what the offers were, I don't think it was a bad three-way trade at all.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair because the Lakers are losing Pau Gasol, who's
And
won them
Lamar
two
Odom.
championships, and Lamar Odom, who's been there for two championships. And you're getting Chris Paul, who's like younger, but you're pairing him with an older Kobe Bryant, who at this point would only have 5 more years of his career left. So it's not like you're getting, you know, a young Kobe Bryant with a young Chris Paul. You're getting an established Chris Paul with an old Kobe Bryant,
And
right?
literally nothing else.
And nothing else. And you're losing uh, an All Star and Pau Gasol, who just won you two championships, uh, who still has, I think Pau Gasol still made like four All Star games post 2011 and 12. Like he made at least two in Chicago. I think he might have made two in LA. So that's still a four-time All Star you're giving up for Chris Paul as well as Lamar Odom, who is like at that time one of the best wing defenders in the game. Uh, or at least was. I don't know if he was still playing as good in 2011, but his resume was still pretty solid. So I don't get why David Stern would have vetoed this if it was. I mean, I get if they would have kept some of those players, but all they're getting is Chris Paul.
And he was looking over the Hornets, and the Hornets were getting a lot back.
Yeah, at that point the Hornets didn't have a uh, they didn't have an owner, and so their owner was the NBA. So whenever it came down to any moves, free agent signings or trades, it all boiled down to what the NBA said they could or could not do. And so I think it just boils down to uh, he says basketball reasons, but the basketball reasons tend to probably just be that the NBA wanted uh, good players in New Orleans. Chris Paul obviously was going to end up leaving there, but they didn't want to give him up to go play in a bigger market because that would just turn off fans from watching New Orleans games. They want to make their money, and if you're currently owning this franchise, then all that money is going straight to you as opposed to like an owner. So they want the best players as possible on their roster, so they don't have to have own a bad team and reap the uh, what they sow in terms of having a very bad roster and letting Chris Paul go to probably like one of the like top two most historic franchises. I think it boiled down to more of a money move instead of uh, fairness in basketball.
Okay, there we
You're
are.
not sorry.
The dogs were barking, so I muted my mic and then I forgot. Um, yeah, with the Chris Paul thing, I agree with what Jacob said. They vetoed it because the NBA wouldn't get any money. Um, what's my? Oh yeah. My bad. My next thing is something that could also. I just kicked something. Yao Ming, that boy, that guy, that man, is a science project. This is an article from January 19th, 2006, posted at 11 a.m. It does not give me the author, so if I see it down the line, I'll give it out. But as of right now, there's no author. Um,
Author, I hardly knew her.
Sheesh. So it says, far from being a chance creation, Chinese basketball giant Yao Ming was knowingly bred for the sport. forced into it against his will, and subjected to years of dubious science to increase his height. A new look claims. Book, not look. I'm sorry, a book. Um, so essentially, I'm just gonna give you the rundown. Essentially, in China, they had this program where they took tall women and tall men, and they put them together, and they bred athletes. Um, so Yao Ming's mom and Yao Ming's dad. This is how it happened. That's how Yao Ming was birthed. So straight off the bat, Yao Ming was made for one purpose, and that purpose was to be tall. Some consider, or some think it's because, the Olympics, Chinese were kind of lacking some height, stuff like that. So they made these camps to grow. Yao Ming was a part of that. Yao Ming, essentially, I don't know if he's the tallest in his family, but he was, how tall was he? Like 7'6"? Was he 7'6"? I don't know. He's a tall
I think
guy.
76.
He's a tall man, tall man. So essentially, that is what happened. That's not the theory. The theory was that after he was born, they kept doing like basically like HGH, and kept giving him stuff to make him even taller, to make him their prized possession. And yeah, so let me see if I can find the quote. Um, Larmer says Yao's birth had been anticipated for decades by communist officials desperate to boost national pride through sports, who had been tracking his family for 2 generations. So essentially, uh, they were expecting Yao for a long time. And um, one of the first NBA scouts was blown away when he went to northern China and saw more than 27 footers. Yao's grandfather, one of Shanghai's tallest men, was discovered too late for basketball, but his son, Yao, might butcher it, Ziyuan, Swan, I don't know, something. Sorry for the butchering. It doesn't have a way to say it. Found himself dragged into the sports system. There, he was paired off with they have it in centimeters, with the 182 centimeter Fang Fengdi, China's women's captain, who had been a feared Red Guard during the murderous Cultural Revolution. The two were encouraged to marry in a system with undertones of eugenics. Eugenics. I thought it was a different word. My bad. Eugenics, the controversial gene pool manipulation. What are these words, bro? Essentially, they got paired together. They had the birds and the bees, and they made Yao Ming. And in Yao's case, I don't have any proof, but in that period of time in the 1990s, they were using all kinds of experimental stuff to enhance players' stamina and strength. So that's what they were assuming that he was getting. Like they already got him tall, they were giving him these hormones to boost his stamina and his strength. One would think that as China can flex its muscle economically, its economic
Okay.
status, its military, its diplomacy,
Yep.
bro. Holy fucking shit. That it would need sports as a crutch. Jesus. But sport is such a visible, exciting measure of China's position in the world, and national feeling is so strong. I don't think that's going to be easy to give up. Gold medals have become an addiction. How do you kick the habit when you've reached the top? That's the end of the article, and it does not give me an author. So I'm just going to say shout out the Sydney Morning Herald. I'm assuming that's just news.
Yeah.
This was from 17 years ago. That's the theory. The theory is, well, I mean, it's fact that his parents were put into this like camp for tall people to make babies. But the theory was that he kept getting these like drugs to make him have better stamina and muscle strength, and essentially just make him like the Captain America of sports, basketball in particular.
I think
calling an Asian man Captain America is kind of crazy.
Well,
within
if
China.
you watched Captain America, you knew what I was talking about. He took the super serum, or the super soldier serum,
To become like
a super
you know
soldier.
a super soldier.
No
No, I think
lack in capabilities.
I
Yeah.
think this is more uh, truth than it is theory, just because China. Okay, let me preface this. Asian people tend to, on average, be shorter than the rest of the world. Now, I don't know the science behind that, but that's just like a fact that is can be looked up. That the the shorter people tend to come from Asian countries, China, Korea, Japan, even the Middle East, and like Iraq and stuff, places like that. The men tend to be shorter than uh, you know some other Western countries such as Europe and then obviously the Americas. But China has always been really big about uh, getting the most out of their people. Um, they have the highest population because they used to um, encourage people to have tons of uh, sex to have more babies and then boost the Chinese population and get their military size up and then have a really big a lot of people and expand China as much as possible. They did that forever. And then whenever they had the thoughts of China being too big, they went in and they made laws that you can't have more than one child per household. So per marriage, you can have more than one child. And so China, on paper, has always been known to delve a lot into people's business whenever it comes to um, their population and having children and stuff like that. So, and then, like Jordan said, it's fact that they dive into eugenics. And if you don't know what eugenics means, it's just a set of belief that you can, as a government or an agency, take two people and breed them together just for the sole purpose of not, love and having children and creating a family, but of having the best genetic quality across a whole human population. And that's something that's on record been seen in China a lot. And so I think um, I really do believe that Yao Ming is just a really good uh, uh, outcome of their study into eugenics and genealogy and getting the most out of everybody. Because if eugenics is like not looked high upon because of how the Nazis used it during World War II. They were trying to, obviously breed a certain kind of white hair or white person, blonde hair, blue eyed person. And so eugenics was very frowned upon. But whenever the Chinese and a lot of other Asian or Eastern Asian countries got a hold of the science, they instead of using it to like segregate different parts of the population, they're just trying to create better offspring down the line, hoping that in the future everyone's going to be super tall and super athletic and then super big, and so whenever they have a future with very big armies, they're going to have obviously an advantage, and I think it boils down to every part of society, and so the first part of uh, popularizing this idea of having very tall people and strong people is obviously getting into the sports world because that's a thing that's on a global stage year in and year out through international play, Olympics, as well as sports in the United States, which are probably one of the biggest countries in terms of sport viewership. Getting one of your players over there, a person that you, like Jordan, had stated, quote unquote, created in the lab, uh, getting over there and becoming very popular. Yao Ming played only 8 seasons in the NBA and was an eight-time All-Star. Every season he was in the NBA and was a Hall of Famer off of only 8 seasons. So whenever it comes to a great career, you can't really ask for much out of the small sample size that Yao Ming gave us. I truly believe that he was just the result of what China's been doing forever, and that's eugenics and getting the best out of their genes. And their first step into that is making it more popular with sports. Uh, Obviously, their goal is for other purposes, such as like having a bigger population and then having a bigger military. Uh, that gets too political for me to talk about. But in terms of sports, they have created um, some very tall people in the name of entertainment.
Yep.
What do you think, Preston? You said you don't.
No, I mean, I don't believe it's no science project. I mean, there's tall people all over the world. There's more tall people overseas than there is in the U.S. I just feel like you just grab two tall people from China, you know, did the woo whoop, and then next thing you know, you got a 7'6" guy from China who's playing in the NBA.
Yeah, but wouldn't you consider that a science experiment if they're having kids just to have a tall kid instead of having it to create a good family?
Yeah, it wasn't
Is
like
Would you
it
they.
like
consider that
It wasn't
science?
like
is
he
it is
met
it
his
is it
mom on the streets and was like, "Wow, she looks very nice. I'm gonna go talk to her."
No.
is
And
that
they
is
had a
The
that is
baby.
government,
that is that is that proven fact though? Is that
Yes.
proven
yeah,
fact?
yeah.
It
China's
is.
been doing that forever. They purposely pair up people that have certain genes, very tall, very strong, very broad shoulders, and they breed them with someone else that has those same genes. That is fact. That's what they do.
I didn't know that was considered a fact. I thought that was the conspiracy. Um,
Now the conspiracy was that Yao Ming was the result of that, and that he kept on getting those treatments after he was already, born and was super tall. They saw his potential, and the theory states that they saw his potential and decided to just keep on giving him different things to enhance that even more.
I mean, it would make sense because didn't he end his career off injury? Then his career
Yeah.
could get cut short due to injury, and that could have been from all the stuff they were giving him. So I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I don't know. It just sounds too off the wall for me to believe. If that makes sense.
No, I get that.
Am I next?
Uh, no, I'm
You next?
next.
Yeah, you next.
I'm next. Uh, well, Yao Ming was drafted in 2002, uh, in July 2002. Well, not July.
Here comes the segue.
Yeah, it was July.
Here comes the
So
segue,
a
guys.
month before, he was drafted, month and a half before he was drafted,
Here
actually, in
comes the
May of
segue.
2002, was the Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals, uh, between the Sacramento Kings and the Los Angeles Lakers. So a lot of what we've talked about today has been kind of, you can all trace it back to a little bit about David Stern being a little greedy and looking too much for image and too much for money. He came into an NBA that was just coming uh, off of a bad era of all their players being perceived as crack addicts and stuff. And then Larry Bird and Magic Johnson kind of saved that image. And David Stern comes into the league in the 80s and kind of picks up on that. And then, so whenever they made basketball popular again in the 80s, uh, they had a nice segue into the 90s with Michael Jordan, who took the game and made it globally, obviously helping in the 1992 Olympic run, where they had went over to Barcelona and dismantled every single game or person and team that came their way. Uh, and it allowed the NBA to have more of a global fan base because they want to see this really cool, fast-paced sport. And so David Stern's whole mantra is about making the most money and having the best image possible. In the early 2000s, he instated a dress code. He doesn't want his players, obviously wearing regular clothes, shorts, t-shirts, and stuff. The dress code was if you're an NBA player, you show up to the games wearing suits and ties. Uh, he wanted the best image put forth. And so, whenever it comes to 2002, the Western Conference Finals, the theory states that David Stern had his hand in that as well. So there was a new TV deal about to get made, and the NBA obviously wants the most for these from these companies, uh, for ad space, and then also broadcast their games on different networks. Um, and they want the most amount of people to watch these games because that's how they make their money. Obviously, the Nets had just won Game 6 of their finals, and the Nets playing in New Jersey at the time, which is a pretty big market. He did not want to. The theory states that David Stern did not want the Nets to play a smaller market team in the finals because they were just 1 second. They were just coming into a part where they're trying to get a bigger brand deal with these networks, and so obviously he wants the highest ratings across the board. And so if you're the NBA, obviously the best thing you can do is have Shaq and Kobe in the finals again for potentially their three-peat. And so the theory states that in Game 6 of the NBA Finals, David Stern had a hand and a bunch of very bad calls. And a lot of this comes from, you guys know who Tim Donaghy is?
Referee, right?
Referee, yes. And he's a referee that was caught for fixing games. Um, and so he was one of the referees this night. And so this theory, which kind of like solidifies in my mind as a little bit closer to fact, is here's this quote. He says, there's this guy named Bavetta that he's talking about. He said he claimed several times to several of us at the NBA that he was the NBA's go-to guy. He was put on game sixes to force game sevens. I think there's no doubt in my mind, or a lot of my people from inside the NBA, they know that they gave the Lakers the benefit of several calls in that game, thinking it was just going to go to game seven and Sacramento was going to win on their home floor. And the Lakers win. They win the championship, and really, it's unfortunate for Sacramento because they should have definitely have a ring on their finger. When you look at how good Sacramento was playing, uh, in terms of their output, they were a better team in those playoffs. And so coming in, the Lakers could lose at home to the Kings, and that ends the potential for a three-peat for Shaq and Kobe. And it also solidifies that spot for a small market team like Sacramento to make their first finals appearance to play against a Nets team that kind of got whooped up on pretty bad by the Lakers. And so it's safe to say that if the Lakers would have whooped up on them as they did, and the Kings were keeping it very close to the Lakers, that the Kings could be champions that year. But the theory states that refs made bad calls in favor of LA, knowing that in Game 7, LA has potential. They have obviously Shaq and Kobe. They have Phil Jackson, who at that time already had 8 rings as a coach. Um, so they kind of rigged that game in favor of the Lakers so they could have the highest viewership. They could force the Game 7, and that their finals could be with 2 big market teams. Obviously, New Jersey and LA would get higher ratings than Sacramento and New Jersey. And so that's what the theory stands, that David Stern was very money hungry. He got with his referees, asked them to see what they could do to, you know, push it towards a Game 7, and then try and get LA back into the finals and secure that three-peat for Shaq and Kobe. That's all I got. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a fact, but like I could definitely. I mean, Tim Donaghy went down for it. He was tied
Yeah.
with the mafia, so I think it could have
Yeah.
happened.
Could have. And it's crazy. But you know what else is crazy?
What?
What else is crazy?
Kanye West. But what does Kanye West have anything to do about this? Because he falls under the Kardashian curse. Now, if you don't know anything about anything at all, you should know that the Kardashians are a rich family, really rich family, and they've been in the media for being with NBA players such as Chris Humphries, Lamar Odom. Um, there's another one. Help me out. There's another one.
Oh, there's a lot of them. So Khloe Kardashian was with
There-
James Harden. Uh, Kendall Jenner was with Devin Booker. She was also with Blake Griffin. She was also with Ben Simmons. She was also with Jordan Clarkson.
Right. And the Kardashian curse is once they break up with a Kardashian, it all goes downhill. It all goes downhill. Lamar Odom started doing crack.
Crackhead. Love you, Lamar.
Chris Humphries, I think he just got bounced out the league. I haven't really heard anything.
Yeah, he did.
He's got bounced out the league. Ben Simmons started playing like butt. Um, James Harden, I wouldn't say that was. Did,
I don't know.
did, did James,
He was with her his MVP year, and he hasn't played at that level since.
so yeah, Blake Griffin started playing like butt. Devin Booker, he's just getting
I mean,
overshadowed by KD.
But the Suns, I mean, Devin Booker and Kendall Jenner broke up like last year, and the Suns since like last year, even with the roster they have not been good. Like not a threat, I
So
don't think.
so basically, if you date a Kardashian, you better stay with her, or you're gonna start playing like butt.
Yeah, you play like
Yeesh.
straight ass
Play
shoes.
play a butt. Y'all got any opinions on that one?
Not really.
There's only one player I know that has kind of bounced out of that, and that was Jordan Clarkson. But his was more like a fling, so he's played pretty good since then. He's obviously been what wasn't he 6th man of the year last year or the year
So
before?
no, don't date a Kardashian.
I mean-
just get with her.
Devin Booker's
then-
not playing like butt.
Yeah, but they're just not playing like winning basketball in terms of like his ceiling, I guess. But I think Devin Booker might be the one to kind of like break that Kardashian curse just because he's that good. Lamar was kind of at the end of his prime anyway, and so
We started doing
Yeah.
crack.
he did, and he had like 6 heart attacks in one night. Shout out Lamar Odom. He's a boxer now.
So he's a boxer.
Yeah.
That's news to me. News to me. But that's all I got. If y'all got anything else,
I think that's all I got. Now I'm
All
gonna go hit Sunnies with the boys.
Yeesh. Yep, that'll be it. This was your Christmas episode. Late.
no,
is.
this is actually your Kwanzaa episode.
This is your
Merry Christmas, Happy
This
Kwanzaa.
is your New Year's episode, guys.
this
This
is
is your going
Today
into
is-
New Year's.
Today is Kwanzaa, guys. So happy Kwanzaa if you celebrate.
I'm crazy for Kwanzaa.
Don't
Okay.
ever say that again.
That was funny.
That's it. See ya.
Later.
Later.